Pastor Lindsey Williams has been an ordained Baptist minister for 28 years. He spent 3 years working on the Trans-Alaska Oil Pipeline, where he lived and worked with some of the world's elite oil executives. Subsequently, he wrote about his experiences in the eye-opening The Energy Non-Crisis, but his life was threatened because of the revelations printed in the book. Now, in January of 2010, the same oil executive who threatened his life told him, I'm in poor health, I'm dying, I'm too old to care. Tell everything. And that's what he has been doing since then. He joins us every month to bring us the latest information on globalist strategies. Pastor Lindsey Williams, welcome back to the Global Freedom Report.
Well, it's so good to be with you today, and you are right. Things are happening so rapidly that I sit back here literally amazed at the ability of the elite to be able to do everything that they say they're going to do. I know we have many new listeners out there in your audience today, as we always have. So just very briefly, many years ago, I had the privilege of being invited by the elite of the world to be their chaplain. You heard me correctly. That's rather unusual. But I was asked to be in board meetings. I sat with them. I lived with them on the Trans-Alaska Oil Pipeline. I had an opportunity not for them to be in my church, but for me to be on their pipeline, and was invited as their chaplain. For 3 years' time, I lived with the people you hear about in the World Bank, the IMF, the top oil company officials of the world. It changed my life. I will never be the same person again. And over these past 35 years, since that experience, I have kept in touch with a number of these individuals, in particular 2 of them. And Brent was correct a few moments ago when he said that about, 4 or 5 months ago, one of these individuals, 87 years of age at the time, died. And before he died, he basically said, Chaplain, I'm too old to care. Go ahead and tell the world everything. Well, that's exactly what I've been doing. And today, you will hear some unusual things. And I knew that you could never believe what you're going to hear today had I not at least given you the background as to why I know this. And again, I'll say by the providence of God, there's no way that any little insignificant unknown missionary flying around airplanes out in the bush of Alaska as an aviation missionary could have ever been in the position that I was put in except by God's providence. I give him all the glory. And as a result, I've been able to warn people what was going to happen in the world. Now, Brent, I think just before a month ago, before the program that I did with you then, I believe we had just had the crisis in Egypt. Libya had not even developed yet. And at the time, I said on your program that I was told 4 to 5 months in advance. In fact, I believe the first program I did with you was before any of this took place, and I said that I had been told there was going to be a crisis in the Middle East. I had asked the question of my elitist friend at the time. I said, is this going to be a war with Iran? And he said, no, Chaplain, it's not. I said, well, what is it going to be? He said it's going to be a crisis in the Middle East. He would not tell me what place it was going to be in. Now, many of you who have heard me on different radio broadcasts around the country, on many different shows, I stated back in those days that this was going to happen. So when it happened, it was nothing new.
My guest is Pastor Lindsey Williams, known by so many as the pastor to the global elite. He literally gets to talk with the people who would rule the world. And he brings what he learns to our attention, and we're very, very appreciative to have him here. Pastor, welcome back to the show. We just got word yesterday of the Camp Lejeune, North Carolina deployment of the 22nd Marine Expeditionary Unit. Wait for it. To the coast of Libya. Now 2 days earlier, Obama had promised, that we were not going to bring in ground troops. Yet they just brought 2,200 troops, some of which are ground troops, who are expected to be there for 10 months. Can you shed any light on this development and its significance to the bigger picture?
The crisis in the Middle East was planned. And, Brent, you'll remember that on your program I said within 4 to 5 months there'll be a crisis in the Middle East. First of all, it began in Egypt. Now it's spread to Libya. It will very soon be in a number of other Middle East countries. Only, 2 days ago, I received a communique from the one gentleman who is the second Mr. X in my book, Energy Non-Crisis, who is still alive, retired, of course. And this became very startling to the point that I was doing radio shows most of yesterday just because people said this is so startling. Last week, Hillary Clinton, our Secretary of State, met in Libya. It was a closed session. No news media were allowed. Afterwards, no questions were allowed to be asked or answered. She was very quickly brushed away. Nobody knew what the meeting was all about. The elite knew what it was about, because what's happening in Libya right now is so startling. Gaddafi just doesn't step down. And why was our Secretary of State there? Well, you've got to go to two words, Muslim Brotherhood. And I don't know how to say this because you have to see it. There's no way that you can understand what the Muslim Brotherhood is doing without actually seeing the chart that was given to me just a matter of about 2.5 weeks ago. And we included it in our new DVD series, The Middle East, The Rest of the Story, which is 3 DVDs that we just produced. We've released them for the first time this week. And in it, you will actually see a chart of what the Muslim Brotherhood is doing. Our Secretary of State actually met with the Muslim Brotherhood. I was startled when I learned what it was really all about. It appeared one time, I heard it on the national news, that she was there, that this closed-door session had taken place. No news people were allowed in, no questions asked before or after, no answers whatsoever. She actually met with the Muslim Brotherhood. We are, for all practical purposes, as a nation, in order to answer your question a moment ago, we are, for all practical purposes, giving Egypt and Libya to the Muslim Brotherhood. Now, Egypt does not have a government right now. They will have an election this fall. And when they do, mark my words, the Muslim Brotherhood will be the government of Egypt. This is a radical Islamic jihadist group, and not only will they take over Egypt and their government, they will take over Libya also. It's all planned. Every bit of it was done in advance. What's happening in the Middle East, I knew about it numbers of months before it ever happened, that it was going to take place. I just didn't know the countries where it would take place. Now I'd like to tell you what is going to happen from this point on. And you just have to see the chart as to what their plans are, and you'll know exactly where they plan to go.
Before you get into that, I'm just curious, where does Gaddafi fit into this? Gaddafi is not going to roll over on anybody for any reason, as far as I can tell. Is he part of this, or is he obstructing the globalist agenda?
Every leader in the Middle East, whether it was the leader in Egypt, whether it's Gaddafi in Libya, every one of them are going to be removed. Over the next few months' time, you're going to see the kings. Watch it now. This will surprise you, but put it down on a piece of paper, put it right beside your calendar, and watch it. Whenever it happens, I know what you're going to say. You're going to say Lindsey Williams is a prophet. And I'm telling you right now, I am not. It's just that I've been told by the elite what their plans are. Gaddafi is in their way. He must be removed one way or the other. I'm amazed that he hasn't already been assassinated. They can't get to him, undoubtedly. But
Gaddafi is a strategist, and he's very smart. So I'm sure that he's planned for his protection well before any of this stuff happened.
What's happening in the Middle East is an oil war. Simply, just as plain as a person can put it, what happened in Iraq was an oil war. What's happening in the Middle East right now is an oil war. They are going to see to it that the Muslim Brotherhood takes over every nation in the Middle East. Are you hearing correctly? Watch it. You'll see it take place. Right now, it's Libya. That is the big issue. But it's not turning out quite the way that the elite wanted it to happen. Then, in the last 24 hours, you saw what happened in Syria. Oh, my gracious. 12 people shot point blank by government forces, 120 wounded. That's in the past 24 hours. over the past weekend, 55 dead in Syria. You realize we have a repeat of Libya all over again. Whenever we get through with Libya, we're going to have to take those same forces, those same missiles, move them right on from country to country to country, and every king in the Middle East will be deposed. Watch out.
Hey, that sounds like that's the message of French President Nicolas Sarkozy. Hey, we don't like what you're doing. We're just going to take the same action with you. Last month, we discussed the March 14th Day of Rage that was promoted in Saudi Arabia. From what I've been able to learn, Saudi King Abdullah had his military take preventive measures, and in the end, it was about as well attended, this Day of Rage, as the Y2K was a real crisis. Furthermore, our correspondent in Saudi Arabia spoke with a number of people about the so-called Day of Rage. Not a single Saudi was interested in the protest movement. Have the globalists suffered a defeat of sorts to their agenda in Saudi Arabia?
No, they have not. It may just take them a little bit longer to do what they wanted to do, but mark my words, it will happen in Saudi Arabia. The kings that will be deposed, just as they're going to be in Yemen, Bahrain, Syria, Saudi Arabia, every single one of them, the end goal of the elite is to cut off the oil supply. I hope you're hearing this. They want it cut off for the purpose of being able to do numbers of things. Number one, whenever this happens, the price of crude oil is going to go to $200 a barrel. Mark my words. And then after that, you're going to see the dollar collapse. This must come about in order to be able to bring in the new world currency, which will be backed by gold and silver. You're going to see the price of gold go to approximately $3,000 an ounce. You're going to see silver $50 an ounce before you know it. If you've ever wanted to buy it, you better buy it right now. It is going up. Every bit of this is the process that I was told. And by the way, you can't say I didn't say it before it happened because I recorded it on 6 DVDs, a presentation that I made numbers of months ago. Then just days ago in my presentation, the Middle East, the rest of the story I tell after Egypt had already taken place, the crisis there. I said why they were doing it, because they told, first of all, they said it's going to happen. There's going to be a crisis in the Middle East. I said that on radio stations all across America. Then they came back and told me why they were doing it, and I think I gave this on your last program, Brent. Every bit of it is for the purpose of accomplishing the new world order and their timeline, which is the end of 2012. So, no, they did not suffer a defeat in Saudi Arabia. It's probably just going to take them a little bit longer to do what they want to do than what they'd planned for. There is no way that those kings can stand. There is no way that Gaddafi can stand. Eventually he will be gone, and this will bring about what they want. It may take them a number of months to do it, but they will accomplish what they wanted, Brent.
Now, however, I'm sure you would agree they couldn't accomplish a $200 a barrel price without disrupting Saudi Arabia. They couldn't do it without dealing with Saudi Arabia. Isn't that correct?
That's correct. Now, let's go to something else.
Just before. I'm curious because you're a pastor, you're a Baptist minister. You believe in God. It almost sounds like what you're saying is might makes right. There's nothing anybody can